What's happening? It's Matthew Sickett, the Mortgage Genie, back with another episode of WTS Housing Headwinds. As you may or may not have seen, I put out a video just a short time ago on the housing tailwinds, though I thought it'd only be right to give you the other side of the coin and take a look at 3 graphs and a few articles on what's going on with residential real estate. Got 5 minutes? Come geek out with me. So where do we begin? Other than interest rates, well, that's really the topic of debate. And even though the Fed paused the accelerator on the rate blaster in September this year, we've seen rates rise to the fastest pace they have since 1980. And that's 11 times since they started in 2022, when rates were at basically zero to the present of 5.5%. And the thing to remember is that the Fed does not have surgical tools to combat inflation. Each of these hikes works like a hammer, more or less a sledgehammer. And it's like trying to fix that loose screw with your fingernail, and really hard to do. The higher the rates go, the higher the cost of mortgage payments will go, and that'll thus make it harder to qualify for. And I know what you're saying, Matt. We've seen this all before in the 80s when rates were in their teens. But let's just talk about where they are currently to where they were 3 years ago. And during the pandemic, about January 2021, the low point, you could get a 30-year fixed around 2.6% relative to today's 8%. So respectively, the cost of a 30-year mortgage payment went up from the January low of just over $2,000 a month, let's just say for a $500,000 loan, to more than $3,500 a month for that same $500,000 amount borrowed. So that's a 75% increase. And in a few days, we'll see what the Fed does further. Remember, they're fighting a losing battle on inflation. There's little interest in U.S. treasuries. Foreign nations have been dumping them as they don't appear to be a safe haven. So we'll just see what the Fed does next month, and rates just may have to go higher. Hey, the second graph I want to take a look at has to do with debt, and more debt. That's right. This past Q2, total household debt rose to $17 trillion, with credit card debt alone more than $1 trillion. Other balances like autos, $35 billion, and last but not least, mortgage stand pat at $12 trillion. Now, if we just rewind this to the credit crisis in Q3 of 2008, when housing debt was at $10 trillion and non-housing at $2.7 trillion. Based on just where we were 15 years ago, housing debt has increased by another 20%, with non-housing debt accounting for a 70% increase. So with this amount of debt in the system, it's hard to fathom what else consumers can afford to pay for. About 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, with about 40% of 6-figure earners in the same boat. So this is no longer a problem of the little people. And yes, wages are increasing, say about 5% on average, but the debt and cost of debt is fast outpacing any wage increases. And if you just look a little deeper, the consumer spends the increases anyhow. So are we really in jeopardy of a wage price spiral? I don't think so. Last but not least, the affordability index. So what happens when you combine high home prices with high mortgage costs? You see housing affordability drop, and drop like a rock. That's exactly what it's done since May. And this is clearly another headwind with real estate, as this index in terms of the affordability takes us back to the 1990s. And so it's no wonder why mortgage applications are down to the levels back to April of this year. It's, sticker shock in terms of the home prices, but you also have to appreciate it from the lender's perspective. Higher interest rates make loans harder to qualify for. Everybody knows that. But here's an interesting article from CNBC stating that the typical housing ratios need to be at 36% of your gross total income. So let's think about that another way. So for every $1 of debt you're qualifying for, that's the equivalent of needing $2.78 of income to support that ratio. So let's bring this full circle and how we began the video with that $500,000 loan running you about $3,500 a month in just mortgage alone. So that's just a qualifying payment. That doesn't include the taxes, your insurance, any dues, or any other debt you may be carrying, card debt, student loan debt, revolving debt. So let's just say $3,500 a month. How much income do you need? Well, that's $9,700 a month minimum to qualify for that $500,000 loan. Or let's just figure on an annual basis, just to support a $3,500 mortgage payment, and only $3,500 mortgage payment, $117,000 of annual income. Again, no extras. So obviously something's got to give. Will it be rates? Will it be home prices? Maybe a combination of both. Certainly we're entering a different market. And my theory is that interest rates must go down, because that's what's going to keep the music playing. So that's all I have for now. Let me know what I've missed, or if there's a topic you'd like to see on tape. One love.